Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we are live streaming. Thank you. We welcome our viewers on Facebook, Instagram. I think we're on Rumble now. I think we're just about on everywhere now. So please follow us. If you are all Facebook users, get on your Facebook, follow 1776 Sons of Liberty, and stay updated on what is going on, not only here, but in our state and our nation. And so this is Marty doing the introduction for Lewis Herms.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an even bigger pleasure to introduce Lewis Herms. It's been a while since I've been in here. Actually, I've gone to a couple of your events. Lewis, I've known him for, I think 4 or 5 years now. I started following him years ago when he did the Screw Big Gov tour and Truth tour. I think you guys are all going to like him. Don't hold back the questions. The harder the questions, the better. And with that said, I'd like to introduce Lewis Herms.
I don't know, Marty. I thought you were going to give us a lot of just personal, in-feeling, stuff. I could have done that. Gee whiz. What a blessing. I did research you. God bless you. It's good to have people like you on the page of being a candidate because you represent us. And thank you for being here. That mic will go. You can pull it off if you want. Thank you. At the end, I just want to remind everybody, if you have questions for Lewis, just raise your hand. I want to walk over to you with the microphone so your question comes over on the live stream. So just give us a minute if you have a question.
Do we have a time frame?
No, sir. You can take as much as your time. We're out of here at 8:30. You take as long as you want.
Okay.
Allow questions as long as you want.
Good. So you're out of here at 8:30 a.m., so that works out perfect for me. Thank you. So I knew I liked you when I went to the restrooms and there was only 2 sexes on the door. So I figured that was a good start, right? So I have an interesting background and it's an interesting run. So let me start by this is I stand here today because I cannot stand politics. And I say, well, that doesn't make sense, right? No, it's true. I hate politics. I don't like politicians. I feel like throwing up in my mouth when I see the way they behave because it seems like nobody's really working for you. And last time I looked, when I've read what the Founding Fathers did so magnificently, is they put people in charge, and we're really supposed to be governing who we call the governors, right? But it's been flipped on its head. In fact, anybody see that Bobby Kennedy took the nutritional pyramid and flipped it upside down, right? That's the way it's supposed to be. Well, I think we should do the same thing with our political structure. We need to flip that upside down so we, the people, have all the power and merely, I guess my position would be the guardian for the people. And I think that's more apropos than saying I want to govern you, because that's not what I want, right? I want you to tell me what to do. I want you to hold me accountable. I want you to say, this is the way it needs to be, and then I'll be a conduit for that success. Now, I'm a huge believer in the Lord Almighty myself. That's who I take direction from. And I've been told what the people want and what they need is what you need to fight for. And fight for I will. And magnificently, we will go to the battlefield and do everything we possibly can to take back our republic. Not take back our democracy. That's BS that's been sold to us. That's another psyop, right? We have to take back our republic. So my background is in a troubleshooter. So I've worked ever since I was literally 11 years old when I had 2 paper routes at one time back in the day when we would put them on our bicycles. I rode with 2 of them, right? And Sundays were a bear. And I would fall over, scrape my knees and my elbows and so on and so forth. But I had a pretty successful paper route because I was really good at getting it on their doorstep. I prided myself on throwing it and getting it on the doorstep, and if I missed, going back and putting it on there. Because I took pride in my work. And as a troubleshooter, it moved through, I worked in a factory when I was 14. I was a latchkey kid, literally. My mom worked 3 jobs, was never home, single mom. So I raised myself, which I take pride in because today I figured out how to MacGyver just about everything to get us to where we want. So as a troubleshooter, later in my career, I worked for an extraordinarily large Fortune 500 fitness company. And they noticed that I was able to take gyms and make them the best they can. So they would put me in the worst performing gym and in 3 to 6 months I would make it the top, and I'd move on to another one and another one and another one. and then I got headhunted from there. But I continued to do that through all the businesses, because what I learned a long time ago is there's nothing that is really a problem. If you want to fix it, it's a challenge. So I would just change the language. And if it's a challenge, therefore, to me, it has a solution. And I found out a long time ago, if it's simple, it's God's work, and if it's complicated, maybe something else is going on. And I believe that's why our government is so complicated. I believe that's why lawfare in our judicial system is so complicated. I believe that's why the corpocracy that pretty much runs things is so complicated, because it's pretty hard for us to fix or understand something when it's complicated. When you get a bill that comes across Congress and it's 1,700 pages, do you think they really know what they're voting for? They have no idea. Now, so what they'll do is they'll fight over that bill for 3 weeks to pass it or not pass it. They'll hire people to read parts of it, but not the whole thing, and summarize it for them. Maybe I'm crazy, but what if they had 20 bills that were just 2 pages long? They'd be able to pass all of those or turn them down all within 2 or 3 weeks. Would you agree? Right? But they couldn't hide anything, could they? Right? Something I'm going to do as governor is I'm going to propose that anything comes across my desk, if it's too heavy and too meaty, you just don't get a signature on it. Right? Or I'll veto it, because the reality is, based on the way the California governor is, if it sits on their desk 30 days, did you know it's automatically signed? So right now there's a bill on Gavin Newsom's desk that you've probably heard of it. Illegal legislation, by the way. If you know anything about the California Constitution, or even the reversal of the Chevron deference decision, you would know that the bill that sits on their desk that wants to charge you for how many miles that you drove is illegal. Newsom may not sign it, but it'll still get approved if he ignores it for 30 days. That's the game is being played and perpetuated through our government. I have a theory that the establishment knows that they're going down, and that we, the people, aren't going to take it anymore. And the establishment knows that the appetite is more leaning conservative than it ever has before in a long time. We've been psyoped to think we're all blue, and that's been a lie, right? The reality is we're more conservative than we are blue. So how do they fix that? They need to do everything they can to drive you out. So I believe the Democrats and Gavin Newsom right now are going what I call scorched earth. And if anybody's familiar with warfare, you know what scorched earth is when the enemy is losing, the last thing they do is they burn everything down, right? So if they can go scorched earth on us right now, they put us in a very unenviable position that we have to either tough it out and deal with it or leave. Now, why do they want you to leave? Because the reality, based on what I'm working on, President Trump is working on, and something that I'm going to be releasing with the team in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be very close to actually reforming our elections in California. So how would the deep state rats, the parasites, how would they win California? They're going to have to drive you all out before we have a free and fair election. And then they could say, look, we won it legitimately. Well, it's because they drove all the conservatives out of town. Anybody in here conservative? Go, what are the odds, right? So it's a very interesting dynamic that we're dealing with. So the reason why I got into the race, because I don't like politics, is I have a company called Screw Big Gov. And I've been disclosing the realities of politics and things that some people used to call conspiracy theories. Now they think, oh, I guess they are conspiracy facts. I guess this world is run by a bunch of pedophiles. Starting to figure that out. I've been disclosing this for several years. I was called crazy once, and now people come back to me and they go, hey, do you remember when you said this? Did you remember when you said that was a bioweapon and I disagreed with you? I guess you're right. And it's not about me being right. We just always happen to be ahead of the curve, right? When we're looking into things, reading the tea leaves, whatever we want to say. So what happened is I have a pretty big online platform, and I said to myself, I go, who am I going to support as governor of California? And I knew immediately, based on the captured operation that we live in today, that the Democrats wouldn't be a choice for me, because I knew if they're running Democrat, they're already captured at this point. It's not the JFK days anymore, right? So knowing that's a captured operation and they're going to lean Marxist, I said I couldn't look at that. So then I looked at the Republicans and I go, okay, this is their ideologies line up with me. What they say they want, let's be very clear about what they say they stand for, what they purport to be what they stand for, I agree with. I go, so let me check out who they have running. Now, I wasn't naive. I already knew, to me, that the California GOP was dirty, and they had no intention of winning anything. I already know their history. I've dealt with a lot of California GOP, and I know their goal isn't to win an election, because then they would have to be held to account, and they make a lot more money raising money as the underdog. It's just the makeup of it. But that didn't bug me at the moment. So what I said is, I said, let me look at these Republicans, and who is talking about the big issues? Well, a huge issue is child sex slavery in the state of California. Huge. I mean, massive, billions of dollars. I've done documentaries on this. I've been down to the border. I've investigated. I've been inside of tunnels. I've talked to the dirtiest of the dirtiest and the best of the best, the ones that are going after these people. It is bad, and it is a massive industry. If you add it up, it's probably top 3 from a profit standpoint. Think about that. Nobody was talking about it. I found that to be fascinating. So I said, okay, anybody talking about the poisonous food that we have on the shelves? And I'm sure, do we have farmers and anybody in ag in here? Right? I would assume, right? It's a big area. So I'm a big proponent of making sure the food is as clean as possible, but you guys are put in a position where it's almost impossible to make the cleanest food based on the way the systems are working. So I said, okay, who's more Maha? Because I'm a big fan of Bobby Kennedy and the work that he's doing. And I didn't see anybody. Like, that's interesting. I said, okay, at least there's got to be somebody that's talking about the parasites that control everything regardless of party. Nobody was talking about that. And it goes on and on and on. So I said, okay, Lord, what do I need to do here? And I thought for sure, based on my history, it was, okay, Lewis, you're going to make another documentary on this. You're going to travel up and down California and wake people up to this apparatus, and then somebody will rise to the top and you can support them because I have a large organization. That wasn't the answer I got. The answer was, you're running for governor. And I argued, to be honest with you. I said, no, Lord, that's not for me. I'm not running for governor. Yep, you are. I said, okay, what's that look like? And it goes on to, I need to first be the disruptor, which I become, get people in the right place. I'll give you a perfect example. This is no shade on one of the candidates, but I was in a debate with one of the top 2 candidates, and I know a lot about child sex trafficking. They asked a question about that. I detailed it and nailed it, and he got on, and he was thoroughly embarrassed with no answers. And within a week, he was standing on the corner of Figueroa where they're doing trafficking with a podium saying he has all the solutions. That pissed me off. Because we don't run our campaigns on the back of children, right? What he should have done is consulted with me and said, because by the way, I openly will help any candidate with that, regardless am I running against them or not. It doesn't matter, because that's how big this issue is. So this is how I got to this point of running right now. Now, the good news for us is out of 103 candidates, or let's say you have about 50 candidates that are conservative-minded candidates right now. Out of those 50, November 8th, we were ranked 15. And now, as of a month ago, we were ranked number 3. That's a pretty nice, that's a meteoric jump right there, which is cool. Now, we're still having trouble permeating in the top 2 because I've been calling out the news media for 5 years. So the last person they want to elevate is me. But we already had things on schedule, and we know that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks, which is good. Because our campaign is unstoppable right now, because there's one thing that we are doing that is really resonating with people. We're just being authentic. We're just being honest. We're just telling the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let me go into some policies really quick, and I'm just going to open it up for questions. And like Marty said, ask me the hard questions. Hammer me. I will not dodge or avoid anything. I have no fear whatsoever because, again, I'm working for you. You're not working for me, so you need to hold me accountable. So one of the biggest things that we're going to work on, which takes care of a lot, is what I call WARF, waste, abuse, redundancy, and fraud. I call it WARF. 5 years ago, I said California is probably the most waste, abuse, and fraud out of all the states, probably double or triple, and people call me crazy. Last February, I said California is probably 75% WARF, waste, abuse, redundancy, and fraud, and they call me crazy. In the last month, I've been getting emails, texts, social media that says, I don't think you're crazy anymore. Now imagine, if my numbers are right, and I know they are, that 75% of what we're dealing with in government, let's say they have a budget of $500 billion, $350 billion is waste, abuse, redundancy, or fraud. Let that sink in for a second. That's what we're dealing with in California. That's okay. So we're going to super doge California. We're going to do a complete forensic audit immediately. We already have people we're talking to that'll go in day one and they'll just start tearing it up. And it's very important because what happens is if we can get rid of that 75%, heck, if we can get rid of 50%, you know what you get rid of? Property taxes. Property taxes are illegal. Does everybody know that? They're a way to steal your home. Governor DeSantis figured that out in Florida. He just announced today that they're going to do everything they can to get rid of property taxes. We don't need property taxes. I know it sounds weird, but you don't need income taxes either. There's enough revenue that pours in. Those are two things you don't need. So imagine where we would be if you don't have property taxes and income taxes, right? Now let's start working on the ridiculous fake environmental regulations that we have. And they are fake. You work on the fake gas taxes, right? They're fake. They're unnecessary. Okay, so high taxes are for two reasons in California, right? It's because either they've mismanaged completely, so they have to keep raising your taxes. By the way, that's what they want you to believe. So at least they aren't culpable. They're like, well, yeah, I guess it is kind of mismanaged, but we need some more money, right? That's an easier one than just saying we're stealing money from you. We're laundering your money. We're taking it. We're paying our friends off. We have 5 people for one position because those are all family members. They don't want to tell you that. But that's what we're dealing with in California. So if we go in there forensically and take care of this and then start eliminating the ridiculous regulations, now we've got something. And in fact, we've got a lot because the economy is going to go up immediately. What's going to happen? Businesses are going to flood back in. I've never heard a business say, if California was working properly, I would not want my business there. Business will never say this. This is the golden crown of all states. Businesses would love to be here. They can't afford to be here. Any farmers have to have their farms in Mexico just to afford farming? You've heard of farmers that are doing that? A lot, right? It's hard. It's really, really tough. But these are very easy solutions. So how are you going to hold me accountable? Well, the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to create a website that is going to give you a detailed, itemized of what all the government expenditures are live, like a QuickBooks, online for we the people to audit anytime you feel like it. Anytime. So you can go online and look at exactly what's going on anytime. And you can say, hey, it's going to have a comment section. Lewis, we have a problem. You guys spent $650 for a desk right here. We saw it on Amazon for $149. My team replies, you're right. I apologize. We'll get that handled right away. That's the way the government should run. Now, there may be about 7-8% that's still hidden because there are things secretly in government that you can't disclose. But if you're getting over 90% itemized that you can look at. Now, you know there's a fake website up right now that you can look at the whole budget, right? And it says $20 million to this section. And then you click on it and it goes nowhere. Because they don't want to tell you what they're really spending your money on. Now, you may think it's hard to put that online, but it's not. Literally, you're just making your QuickBooks account available for we the people to see. These are simple, easy solutions. And then we're going to have another website called exposure.ca.gov, which we're working on right now, but we'll port it over to the .gov when we get into the mansion. And what that is for anybody that is not voting for simple bills that make a lot of sense. For example, do A, B, and C to go after child traffickers, and they decide not to vote that, boom, their picture and their information goes up on the website and say, this dude right now, for some reason, is protecting pedophiles. That's the type of things we're going to do. We are the hammer, and we're going to work for you as much as we possibly can. Now, I can go into a ton of subjects. In June, we put all our solutions online already. We were told, don't do that. People will steal them. And then they have. Top 2 candidates, I think we're up to 5 or 6 now that they've stolen. That's all right. They're not too bright because we time and date stamp everything. So there will be a video to follow in a couple of months that will show this is here. They took this idea. It's fine. We don't play politics. We don't play games. This is all about just doing the work. And that's what I guarantee I'm going to do to you or for you. But what I'd like to do is open it up to questions because you have enough background, I think, to ask questions. If we have farm ag questions, I would ask that we hold those to the end. And the reason why is that is a monster. Because there's so many idiosyncrasies that you guys are getting screwed on. It's ridiculous. But if we handle those as a package, and I ask more questions of the farming community than anything else because I'm constantly learning something in every place. I can tell you, here it's different than all the way up north, which is different from Southern California, different issues all the time, except for the red tape and the bureaucracy seems to be identical all up and down the state. So do we have any questions?
Oh, yeah, there'll be plenty of questions. Before we get into questions, I do want to ad-lib just a little bit. I always like to introduce, we do have a few dignitaries here.
Oh, great.
We have 2 of our city council members. We have Lou Martinez. I'd like to introduce Lou, City Council of Hanford. And we have Travis Payton, 2-term mayor and city council member now. Pleasure to have you. It's always great. Yes, Lou has been 2 terms also. Thank you, Bob. Now, again, any questions? I'll bring the mic to you. Speak clearly into the mic, and it'll come out on our Facebook.
Hi. Where'd you go? Oh,
I'm hiding over here.
glad you were here. What do you plan on doing with the high-speed rail? Twofold. There's still people working on it. What are you going to do with those people? What are you going to do with once it ends? What are you going to, how are you going to end it? And what are you going to do with all the equipment and all the stuff that's still around?
Yeah, so the high-speed rail is really a myth. So what they're doing is they're barely working on the high-speed rail because they've been hammered so hard that they have to justify that they're actually working on it. So that's why they've really kind of upped the ante on it. I don't know if it would ever go through based on the systems and the expenditures that are already dedicated and stolen from it. And that's what we're already have investigators on it as we speak. The money seems to just be gone, which is not, it's not an anomaly. And I can tell you we have a top investigator that is actually talking to, let me just say the feds about that works on our team directly on how the money got stolen. And it's sad, but it's true. So we're going to reevaluate that project and see if it makes sense. And if it makes sense, well, then we're going to fund it properly and transparently and then put it through. If it doesn't make sense, I'll be very honest. And I said nobody everybody's going to like what I say all the time. We're going to shut it down. Doesn't make sense, we shut it down all the way. We're not going to play games with the people.
Ernie Harmon, you said you were planning on winning this thing. Well, the key to that is, how do you know we have voter fraud under control, and do you know something that the rest of us don't know? Is it going to be a federal thing that solves this? So I just want to see you.
I appreciate it.
Based on everything I know, you won't get elected.
Right. You're actually asking the right person that question. Because I just formed an emergency election order letter to President Trump, and he got it last Thursday, I was told, And then they had a dinner, and I was told that Peter Tickton, who, by the way, do you know Peter Tickton? Peter Tickton is President Trump's all-time best friend, and he was having a dinner with him. But 2 days before, Peter read my letter, and he said, "This is amazing. This is absolutely phenomenal." So it was a request to President Trump to do an emergency election order in California specifically, and it gave him a Part A, and it gave him kind of an out. A Part B, which would be a semi-order, which I can explain also. It was so powerful that I had the top 4 election reform people sign on to it. Many gubernatorial candidates signed on to it, including Steve Hilton. And I think it's probably because he didn't want to be left out, but Steve Hilton signed on to it also. It's on my website. I can show you guys. It's on our phones. I'll show you with all the signatures. It's a pretty powerful letter. So that's Part A. Part B I was working with today, which you'll be the first to know. I cannot go into too many details because this is being live streamed right now, but I'll just tell you, Part B is we actually found something that all the counties and the ROVs and county clerks can do right now legally to, at minimum, guarantee transparency. And we have a way to hold them accountable if they say no, they're not going to do that. It is beautiful. I've been working on it this week. I had meetings on it today. We're probably going to hone it in the next 2 or 3 days. And we're going to certify, send these letters to all the counties, emails. And then we have a massive group of social media podcasters and teams that are going to start putting pressure on California. Actually, I'll have a website that will show this county said they did not want transparency. They're in red. This county said they're going to do it. They're in yellow. This county green. One has only done it so far, and that's Shasta County. This county already did it. They'll be in green. So we, the people, are the plan. We can hold them accountable and get this done. And if imagine that you're on the red, and by the way, this is not a partisan issue. I can tell you that. I can tell you already looking at Alabama and other states where Republicans stole some elections. We have the evidence. Not a partisan issue. We have at least 2 Democrats that are prominent that are saying they're willing to sign on to this. So if they do, it's going to be very hard for a county to not have transparency in the June 2nd, 2026 primary. Now, that doesn't do anything about machines, doesn't prevent ballot harvesting, but it does, though, is it gives a public live audit of exactly what's going on. So they'll be held accountable. And that's what Shasta County's already done, and that's why their last election was pretty darn clean. So that's what we're working on. I'm kind of at the head of the election reform, so you actually asked the right person that question. I've been pushing for this, fighting for this. It's one of 3 reasons why I've probably been poisoned two times they tried to kill me. One is because what I do in the election realms, the child sex slavery, and some things I've exposed over big pharma. So we don't know who's trying to kill me, but it probably has something to do with those 3 things right there. But they're not going to get to me. We're divinely protected because we have a mission from God. And I'm not just saying that. We have to take care of the people. Somebody has to step up and do something for the people. Did I answer your question?
You hit on those machines. I personally have asked the questions of some of our county supervisors. We're conservatives, supposed to be in this county, and our machines aren't like that. Okay, if we have people that believe that, we will never solve the problem.
Okay, so not to upset you, but they're feeding you a line of bullshit.
You're kidding.
Okay, they know exactly that every single system is hackable from the outside. I forensically have seen it with my own eyes. I had the top election reform person that's done these forensic audits that captured the actual software and all the votes that came in from a particular state, or actually a county in a state. And he said, watch this, Lewis. He went in from the outside because, oh, by the way, they all have the same entrance code. Go figure. Why would that be, right? By the way, any software producer will tell you there's always a back door. Always a back door. They made theirs very interesting because they go through ports, right? And they just change the ports, and next thing they're in the back door. It's crazy. And he says, watch this. He said, Biden has this many votes. Trump has this many votes. He says, I'm just going to go to this section here, and I'm going to put a 1 here and move it over here to a 1. All he did is switch some numbers, and those votes flipped. Boop. Live. He showed me, and this is their software, right? We're talking Ericsson, we're talking Smartmatic, not Ericsson, Smartmatic, ESS, and Dominion, right? And there's more. So if anybody wants to come at me and tell me election fraud doesn't exist, I'm going to light them up because I've seen it with my own eyes. Maybe we don't want to believe it. Maybe we don't want to believe that we actually live inside of a country where this is being done. But I can tell you, I have friends that are ex-CIA Navy SEALs that 40 years, 30 years, and 20 years ago, we were intentionally placing in people in government in other countries, supposedly to get the good guy in. They've been manipulating this stuff in ballot harvesting forever. I checked into the 2018 Orange County election. Completely ballot harvested. County supervisors, 5 of them, all Republicans, were voted in. By 4 a.m., all Democrats took all 5 seats. It's purely a coincidence, I'm sure. Right? So, yes, you're 100% right. And it's funny, is I was on stage with 13 other candidates, including Steve Hilton was there on November 8th. They asked all the other candidates, how are you going to win? We're going to do this. We're going to make it too big to rig. We're going to get out the vote. We're going to do this. And I was the only one that came up and said, they're all full of shit. I said, if we don't fix these elections and have transparency, a conservative is never going to win on a high level like that. It's true. Would you rather have me tell you the truth or blow smoke up your ass and call it sunshine? Right? Why play games? We don't play games. The good news is nobody's working harder on it than me. We're in touch with the Trump administration right now, and I have some top people right now, today I was talking to, that we're doing something that we believe is going to pressure the counties into, at minimum, make it transparent. So if ballots are stolen, we're going to be able to say, whoa, these don't work. Now, we do have a problem. Full transparency. California law currently states that you have to use tabulators. You don't have to use voting machines, but you have to use the tabulators. By the way, most votes are stolen at the tabulator level anyways. But our system is pretty wonderful. So you have a camera on top. I'll give you guys a little bit of it. You have a camera on top. You open the unsealed 50 ballots at a time. You flip them all the way through. Camera's catching all of it. It's live and recorded. Put those in the tabulator. Now, we understand that that's where they can get switched, right? So you know what we did? Now we have a person right here on the other side. We call it the pitcher and the catcher, taking those 50 out after and going through another camera again. Boom, 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 boom. Now, so you can know if something was switched. It's a beautiful system. And I can tell you, they tested it in Shasta County, and it worked amazingly, amazingly. So there are things that we can do. By the way, every single clerk in ROV right now has the authority to do that without even talking to the Secretary of State. And it's inexpensive. Per unit, it's about $200 for the whole thing. No excuses. That's what we're working on. We're going to hammer them. We're going to get a lot of pushback. What's that?
The video showing it is on the top.
Oh, so I did a 12-minute video with Clint Curtis in Shasta County. If you guys want to watch it, and it explains a lot of this detail, how we can get there. And then there's a piece that we've added to it with a top election guy named Mark Cook, who I was on the phone with today. We've added a couple of pieces to this that really make it pretty hot, pretty good stuff. So yeah, we can do it. We can do it. And I believe we're going to be very, very successful at it. I'm hoping that President Trump helps with the kickstart to do a couple things. But as if anybody knows me, I don't wait for anybody to do anything, because we, the people, are the plan, and we do have the power to do this stuff ourselves. So that's what I'm doing. Is there another question? And by the way, if I look angry at this, I am. Because they're stealing your vote. And they're stealing my vote. And they're stealing the future of our children. So yeah, I am angry when it comes to this. You're a good company. So, all right, good. Well, in fact, speaking of 1776, I'm going to be proposing a 1776 Restoration Act. It's a bill that I'm proposing with a team we've been working on, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. That'd be pretty cool also. Because again, we don't wait till we get into the mansion before we take action. We're going to do it well before that.
So let me ask you a question. The public overwhelmingly passed Prop 36 to start getting these criminals off the streets and back in prison. I've watched for the last 8 years the Department of Corrections close prisons, close yards, steal money from the budget, add it to other places. And what is your plan with the crime rate in California and how to get the prison system back to where it was pre-Governor Gavin Newsom?
Yeah, and it was actually even before Gavin Newsom, it was kind of out of shape for a while, you know, and he didn't do anything to help it. So the forensic audit's going to be a good start because you're going to find out a lot of the theft of the money and how it's been sent to certain lobbyists and certain attorneys, and it doesn't go where it's supposed to go. But what we're doing is we're holding on, within the first month, I'm having a sheriff's symposium with all the sheriffs from all the counties. And we're going to make sure we're on the exact same page when it comes to a few things. One of them is making sure the prisons are just run perfectly. And if they need some changes, we're going to talk to all the sheriffs and say, what can we do better? Now, full transparency, I don't trust all our current sheriffs that are in office right now. But we kind of already know who's who, right? And I've had a program for a long time called Remember Your Oath, where it actually says on there constitutionally, we will hold sheriffs accountable and support them if they're doing their job. So we're going to do both. We're going to be heavy-handed if they're not doing their job, and we're going to be the biggest supporter if they are doing their job. So we're going to expose them or we're going to elevate them. So the Sheriff's Symposium I'm very excited about because this is one of the big issues that we're working at. Included in that is how they can hold people accountable if they are trying to steal an election. We can work together because I have a child trafficking task force, how they can work with that and understand. And unfortunately, how we can hold judges accountable that are in the middle of this. And by the way, a lot of judges are involved in the prison system right now. And there's some political payoffs and judicial payoffs involved in that. We're aware of it. That's going to come out probably within the first month, if not the first week, so we can fix that. So it's a phenomenal question. Thank you. And I rarely get asked that question, so I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
You just brought up a subject that I've always had a hard time with, is it is so hard to try to investigate or look into judges' backgrounds and how they have performed in the past. You don't know what they're going to be. You don't know how they're going to perform anyway. I mean, you don't know if they're no loads or what. I mean, unless you want to go back and dig into their past for years, or maybe as prosecutors or defense lawyers, there's no way you can tell what kind of judge they're going to be.
You're right. You're 100% right. So let me ask you a question. By the way, I lean libertarian when it comes to spending money, just so you know. I have to be full transparent about that. I don't like spending money, not the people's money. That being said, would you think it would be worth $1 billion to have a system that fully investigates every judge, every legislature or every mayor that wants to be in office? Do you think that would be a good expenditure in the state of California? That's what we're going to do. So we have to hold them accountable because they're working for us. So we will have investigators ready. And the thing is about it, too, is that when the investigator teams get going, they're going to kind of get their mojo, and it's going to be easier and easier and easier. They know where to look. And the reason why I know that is because somebody on my team right now is a top investigator into the stolen school bonds. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but they're stealing school bonds. And the way they do it is, for example, it's $50 million to build a high school, right? So they're going to propose a bond, not for $50 million, they're going to propose a bond for $100 million for that high school. All the entities that go ahead and promote the bonds, spend the marketing money and all that, just happen to be all the ones that are getting hired afterwards, the engineers, the contractors, and the attorneys, and so on and so forth. I'm sure that's just coincidence. So they're the ones getting hired, right? Now they end up building that school for somewhere around 20 to 25% more than their standard retail rate. So they're charging 20 to 25% more to build that school. That's on the backs of our children. That's the way I look at it, right? But it gets worse. The same 6 attorney firms all across California just happen to be involved in all of those, and the remainder of the money, the other $25 million, just seems to disappear or gets paid off to these large attorney firms, law firms. Think about that. But it gets worse. So you take a $50 million high school that now costs $100 million, and they put that on a 30 or 40-year bond, which they're not supposed to do, refinance these sometimes at 7, 8, 9% when it should be at a 3% rate. We are sometimes paying 10 times more to build that high school than the original cost that it should be. And we pay that. The fact that you have a guy up here that knows that tells you what I'm going to do to the waste, the abuse, the redundancy, and the fraud in California, because we dig into it deep. And we're not going to play any games, and we're going to hold everybody accountable. And if there's any councilmen or mayors in here, and you need somebody to talk to, you say, hey, this may be going on in my city or my town, we've got the guys, I can hand them over to you, and they'll probably work for free, just so you know. I know I went long on that, but did that answer your question? Cool. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a question pertaining to our annual tax on our automobiles when we do our license renewal. And one of the other candidates came out with this idea, which I thought was great, that the basic amount on all our licenses is, I believe it was $71, plus all these other fees, and you never know when you open that envelope what your charge is going to be for that year. Well, this candidate, Steve Hilton, thought that he would eliminate all the extra charges and go with $71 for any car that you might have. And that would be a great benefit to the people of California and stop the stealing from our pocketbooks. Do you support that idea? Would you kind of maybe talk about it or learn about it? And maybe you know about it.
Yes and no. I had that idea over a year ago, and it was public already out there, and it was less than $71. I'll tell you how political it is. Something came out about the DMV, so the same day, Steve Hilton came out with $71. 2.5 hours later, Bianco said, I'll do it for $25. It's just political theater. It's just bullshit, right? I've had this idea for a long time, and I'm not trying to take care of it, credit for it. That's not what it's about. It's about doing the right thing, right? Why on earth should you be charging more for one vehicle versus another? And if they want to say it's an EPA issue, well, that's horse crap, because usually it's the older vehicles that are charging less for that have more emissions than the more expensive vehicles that have less, right? So it's all a money theft, and it comes down to mismanagement. So they're either laundering the money and putting it in somebody's pocket, a lobbyist, a friend, a family member, a law firm, whatever, or it's completely mismanaged. It's probably both, right? So absolutely, there may not even be any reason for fees, because there's other ways that you can capture the money, right? But I get it, a reasonable fee, a few dollars, to process a license or something like that. That's fine. But all the other money, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. I just want to tell you what you're seeing right now is just political theater, though. And it's unfortunate, right? It's because they wait for that thing to happen, and then bam, look it, I'm the guy with the idea. Whatever. As long as they do it, I'm cool with it, right? And that's what matters. So yes, I do agree with both of them.
You've mentioned several times about the abuse to our children. How would you deal with rooting out the perpetrators, prosecuting them, and then what would you do about restoring these children?
Okay, so these are great questions, and I'm actually you asked two, and I'm going to answer it in 3 parts. The one thing I left out, and we really have to pay attention to, is we have a mess in the CPS foster care system right now, where there are some good CPS agents and there's some wonderful foster care parents out there, but the reality is there's a lot that are children that are being trafficked through that system right now, because that system pays up to $100,000 if you can rip a child out of the hands of their family. But did you know there's already been tests, proven tests, that for approximately $2,500, 90% of those children could stay with their mom or their dad because you're just educating them or getting them some food or helping them get their house cleaned up and protected. 90%. But they'd rather rip them out of the families and destroy that child for life. That's what we're dealing with. It's all a money thing. Part one. Part two, we've been dealing with in the background for a long, long time. I actually have a child trafficking task force that we're building as we speak, and I work with people that have been saving children all over the world, including in the state of California. So we're just going to implement that, and we're going to align that with the sheriffs, so the sheriffs have the education on how to do this and understand it's going to be okay. Many sheriffs, I can tell you there's one sheriff out there, not in California, there's one sheriff out there that was highly elected, and he ran on taking care of the child trafficking issue. We called him a month, 2 months after he was in, and this is his quote. I found out that 50% of my force is dirty. I can't do anything about it. I'm really afraid. That's a sheriff. So we're going to hold this symposium and put together the right people with the right courage and know that they have our support, because they all feel like they're on an island. That sheriff feels like he's on an island. Like, I'm going to get killed. If he knows he has a bunch of support of the government and support of the sheriffs and the CHP and the state police, they would act. So that takes care of that part. The other part's already being taken care of, and you'll be very excited about this. I work directly with a group called Glad Tidings, which is a church up in Yuba City, okay? In fact, the pastor of that church, Pastor Dave, has already endorsed me publicly, right? I work very, very close with them. And they just bought a property that's going to be able to house, at start, about 320 children. So what happens is when these kids come out of child trafficking, a lot of times they don't have homes, and you know why? Because it's their families that sold them into child trafficking. It's big money, and it's sad. And I've done documentaries on this. So what happens is, the beautiful thing about this place, it's called Piece of Heaven. And you put the children in there, they're not only rehabilitated, because it is a rehabilitation process. I know people, I've actually did a documentary, had this one lady on, and she says, we've rescued children, right? And when you're hugging them, they are trying to touch her sexually and tongue kiss her, because they think that's the appropriate way to behave. So they have to be reacclimated to society, fed, nurtured, artwork, taught, if they're willing to do it, the Bible. At least biblical principles. You don't have to be a Christian to know that biblical principles make sense, right? These are the type of things that's already happening. They just bought the property. They're starting to build it. And we're hoping that's a model that we can duplicate all over the state. And honestly, I'm working with other states on this too, all across the country. I said I'm the solution guy, and I'm not blowing smoke. This is all I do. And I'm about ready to cry, because we work so hard at trying to take care of the children, and they're just completely ignored. Completely ignored. Thank you for having the courage to ask the question. Many people don't even go there.
I think we just need to ask this question of everybody from now on, but do you think a man can get pregnant? Do you think he can have a baby?
Oh my God. The fact that we're even here in this day and age tells us where we are. Isn't that ridiculous? No.
I'm just going to ask it, because
to my
apparently
knowledge,
we're not asking this of everyone, and
to
things
my
get
knowledge,
by us,
yes.
and we're like, what?
To my knowledge, I do not think so. Last time I checked, there were 2 genders, right? My wife, so she's proven, though, that Google will tell you there's 72. She does this she's a hairdresser. She does this with her clients all the time. She goes, how many genders are there? They're like, 2. Oh, yeah? Put it in Google. Boop, boop, boop. Says 72 possible genders, right? So it's so ridiculous where we are. I don't know if you were here when I first came in. I said my favorite part of this place is that there were just 2 sexes for the bathrooms. And it's true, because it's so ludicrous. Now, we want to go deep on this. It's the color revolution. This is a woke Marxist ideology that's implemented on purpose to divide us, to confuse us, to get us fighting, because when they divide, they do what? That's it. It's that easy. So, but when we understand it and can explain it, that's what happens. In fact, again, I'm going to be very transparent. I'm frustrated with the Trump administration right now because I think they're lacking in communication skills. I think they could be communicating that we're in the middle of a color revolution. This is the game that's played. This is what you need to be aware of. This is what you're watching, right? Ask this question. Why is it that protesters can end up at a place where ICE is going to be arresting somebody before ICE arrives? How is that possible? Good question, right? Doesn't make any sense. So clearly there's some leak going on within that system, right? Why are these people protecting pedophiles, rapists, murderers? Because they're not educated on who the people are that are being picked up. So they keep believing the narrative they're hearing. Orange man bad. ICE is evil. And you don't have to support Trump or not. This is not about President Trump. This is about this Marxist ideology that's taking over. And we, the people, need to stand up. And when we're getting shouted at and spit on from somebody to the left, you just need to ask them some questions. Why is it that they know how to get there before ICE does? Did you know that that 5-year-old that everybody said was actually stolen by ICE was actually abandoned by his own father? That's the question you need to ask the left when they're screwed.
It was on television. It was on all your...
You need to be the new television.
It was on all the conservative
I get it.
networks.
I get it. But I have a feeling the left isn't watching the conservative networks. But we may run into them in a coffee shop or a store. But we just ask questions. And why are questions so important to ask? Are you familiar with the Socratic method? Okay. So the reason why a question is so important to ask is because they answer the question inside their head. They may lie to you because their ego will prevent them from telling you the truth, but they do answer it. So what I've learned a long time ago, and it's been very effective, is I ask somebody a question and then I walk away. Because I believe God's watering it after that. And sure enough, I've had people come back months and years later and say, hey, you know when you said this, and now they're here and now they're over here. Man, it takes a lot of patience. Trust me. This gray hair didn't come from anything else but that. But it works. But this is why I say, this is why this is here, right here. Doesn't say President Trump is the plan. Lewis Herms is not the plan. We are the plan. And we are. And for the first time in my lifetime, I'm finally watching people stand up and say, okay, I want to be part of it. I want to make a difference. And it's exciting to me. Yes?
Okay, one more question for you.
Okay, there's 3 genders. Let's really talk about this.
You talked a lot about obviously protecting children involved in trafficking. What will you do to protect children in the womb?
Everything. Well, okay, first, let's talk about this, because this is really good. And I know some of you in here are supporting a candidate right now in this room, and their candidate won't answer that question, by the way. So first, we have to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to abortion in California, okay? We have to be honest. That's an election issue from we the people. We voted for that. Or did we? Because if the elections are stolen, did we really vote for it, right? But in the meantime, before we can figure that out, what we have to understand, or what I believe the sanctity of life is the most important thing. I believe that a baby is not a fetus. They're a baby when they're in the womb. That's my belief. And I would ask this question. And anybody that believes in abortion, would you abort 8 beautiful puppies in a womb that you know are going to be born? No, of course not. Right? But somehow it's okay to do that with a human. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Right? There are ways to address this right now, though. So somewhere between 80 and 90% of the abortions, when the women are polled, it's based on financial issues. So it's taking care of the wharf and getting the financial issues is taken care of and getting these women educated. But then they need to be nurtured. They have to understand that, and this is my opinion, abortion is not birth control, right? And it's certainly not health care. But you can be healthy and have a baby. And there are going to be places to place that child. And they need to be nurtured to understand that they're going to have the support if they decide to have that child. They're going to have the support if they decide to give the child away. So what happens is in the state of California, based on their abortion laws right now, even Republicans and conservatives, there's nothing we can do. That's a cop-out. That's a bunch of BS because there is something we can do. Number one, we should look into the finances immediately on that situation. Number two, we can educate, we can nurture, we can have places that make sure the children can be placed. And even they could have a co-parenting situation if that's what they opt in to do. There's so many solutions on this. Right off the top, that's going to eliminate 80 to 90%. So now you're dealing with another sector. I will tell you, in the case of rape or incest, I understand the abortion. But I would do everything I could to nurture those women into having that child. Now, here's the hard one. People would say, well, what if it's a risk to the mom? Mom could possibly die. I think we should have at least 3 separate doctors that would have to evaluate that situation, because you're going to get rogue doctors just like you get rogue judges, and they're going to say, oh yeah, every single one of them is at risk. Let's abort that child. But here's a dirty little secret, and I think if people really understood this, you would have almost nobody for abortion. Abortions are used in satanic rituals. I know it's not something people want to talk about, but it's a fact. So if they're used in satanic rituals, why would anybody support that, right? Are there parts sold? That's been proven. It's been on film, right? I just got a pin from a wonderful lady when I was up in Yuba City just a couple of weeks ago. And I was going to wear it today, but I couldn't find it. I think my wife took it home, so she'll have to bring it back. It's a beautiful state of California, and it has 2 little feet on there, right? The little feet are this big. And they're the actual size of a 10-week-old baby in the womb. And the reason why that's so important, because if for some reason you're for abortion, well, that's your deal. But if you look at those little feet and understand they already have toes, they already have little toe prints, we call them fingerprints, already at 10 weeks, maybe, just maybe, that may change your mind. And I think one of the biggest problems we have in California, and I'm going to blame the conservatives on this, just because it's legal according to a vote doesn't mean we can do everything we can to protect the baby in the womb and the sanctity of life. And I think they use that as an excuse not to get to work. I hope that answers your question.
I have a question. Local control. Right now that we see, and I have 2 questions actually. How, as governor, would you work with a supermajority in the Assembly and the Senate, but also looking at local control, that our tax dollars, our sales tax, 80-some% of our sales tax goes to Sacramento. When we are looking at just the hardworking residents of Hanford, over a budget cycle, we send up $272 million in sales tax revenue, and they give us maybe 15 to 16 million a year. When they put on, they pass legislation, they pass about 2,000 bills a year, or put up to vote for 2,000 bills a year. They're currently passing one that puts so much demands on the Brown Act on each of the cities, but then they say the city has to pay for it. Mm-hmm. They put all these regulations, And so where is the local control at for the cities who are trying to do the best for their citizens and try to be good stewards of their taxpayer money when a majority of the money leaves the city and are left with crumbs? And, you know, we had a senator here gave us a fire truck. You know, we gave you 272 million, you give us $1 million. And it doesn't mean a lot in a sense. And so how would you work with the legislators up in Sacramento? Because it's a beast as it is in itself, but also how can you give cities more local control?
Great question. And I'm going to have to roll up my sleeves for this. Literally. So I created a saying a while ago that the micro will fix the macro. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I wasn't hungry, but I guess I'll eat a microphone tonight. So the micro fixes the macro. The problem with the situation is the micro is not allowed or put in a position to fix the macro. If all cities and townships were run autonomously and weren't strangled for money the way they should be, you would not imagine how successful California would be, right? And guess what? If a city wasn't run right and a legal vote was in there, they would run you out of town. That's the way it would work. Or people would just move to the town right next by. That's why it's so important to give so much control to the micro, which would be the city. And I'm rolling up the sleeves because this is near and dear to my heart. This is my tattoo. It says, "We the people," right here. And the people mean everything. So I'm going to go with the legislature first, and I'm going to answer your question on the stolen taxes. And I did say stolen taxes. So the legislature currently, as it is unworkable completely. And we can't pretend it's not. But there's two things that we can do, which are both huge. I mentioned a website earlier, exposure.ca.gov. So what happens is when we put bills through, they're going to put 2-page bills through instead of 100-page bills. And if somebody doesn't sign off on these bills and they're just common sense, they're going to expose them at the highest level. And that's what we're going to do while we're investigating individually how somebody got elected when we knew they weren't elected. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm going to tell you why it's so important. Does anybody in here really think that Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, and Adam Schiff would have really gotten reelected time after time after time? No. There's no way they would. So if you don't believe that, then you must believe that maybe there is some shenanigans going on with our election. Is that right? Okay. So if there's an election fraud, I use the word fraud. Fraud vitiates everything. So what happens is when you prove the fraud, now you have a reset. And all those positions are out of office immediately when you prove it. And then now you can have a special election under a reformed election and replace all those people. Nobody has had the balls to go after it from that standpoint because they get threatened. I know somebody in Arizona that was duly elected. She got in by the skin of her teeth, right? Her chinny chin chin. The day that she was sworn in, she was stopped by 3 or 4 people in the hallway, and they cornered her, literally got her in a corner and said, "Now you need to do it our way or you're going to be held accountable." She says, "What's your way?" She says, "You're going to vote on the bills we tell you to vote on, and you're not going to pass the ones that we don't want to get passed. And you're going to keep your mouth shut." They intimidated her. So she did the right thing. She came out in the next meeting publicly and she said, "This is what happened." Now, where I think she made a mistake is she didn't name their names. That's exactly what I would have done. And I've proven it. So I'm one of those dirty J6ers. I was at J6. I'm actually on film saving lives with somebody. This is why you never heard of me. This is why I wasn't arrested. Because that would be a really bad look for the people that were prosecuting. Right? We have the film. It went from getting taken down on January 7th to 3 years later. Somebody else got it and it got 7 million views within a couple hours. And now I can't find it, except it's somewhere on my website. I think, didn't you find it yesterday? You or Natalie found it yesterday. So, and that's not about me, but what I'm trying to tell you, so what happened is, not all of the FBI is great. The FBI showed up at my house trying to intimidate me. And I brought them in the backyard, I gave them lemonade and iced tea, and I said, let's have a talk. And I schooled them on the way they should be performing and working for us. And I said, by the time your heels hit the pavement, you're going to be all over social media that was you were at my house. How do you want me to handle this? They were like, whoa. They said, well, we have this flyer of this pipe bomber. And I go, great, what do you need to know? They said, well, we want to know where you were. I go, you know where I was. I said, I guarantee you, you have all the digital assets on my wife's phone and my phone. They said, that's true. I said, so you don't really want to know. You know where we were. And we were nowhere near the pipe bomb. That's your excuse to be here. Okay, pretty much have a nice day. So what happened is as soon as their heels hit the pavement, it was online. I said, hey, they're looking for this pipe bomb. They were been interrogating me. It's okay because I've been watching them outside my house for a year and a half, taking pictures of them. The reason why they couldn't do anything is not just the video, because I held them accountable immediately. And this is what we need to do. We cannot have any fear in our hearts whatsoever. Because has anybody ever dealt with a bully? Best way to deal with the bully is punch him in the mouth. Right? You can't cower to them. We're dealing with bullies. The bullies have been controlling things for a long time. So that's how we're going to deal with that. And then going after them from an election standpoint in investigations, that's how we're going to be able to move them out of office. But in the meantime, we're going to expose. So the heat gets so hot on them that many of them are just going to resign. And we know that I've kind of seen President Trump do this on a few people, and you'll notice that they resign. We're going to do it on a whole nother level. So that takes care of that. Now, in regards to the taxes, it's ridiculous. If you're raising taxes in your city, your taxes should be for the city, right? But I'm going to ask you a question. What does Sacramento do for your city? Right? Barely anything, right? But they're really good at taking your money and spending it on where they determine it to be, right? So that's something we would address immediately. Because I've been saying for several, if anybody's followed me, you've known I've came up with a saying a long time ago, the micro fixes the macro, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. You should have the autonomy to make decisions inside your city that are completely autonomous from the state. And the Sacramento has no business being in your business, right? I really would like to work myself out of a job if I'm governor, because the governor should merely be an overseer and barely be involved in your lives at all. Did that answer the question? Cool. I don't know what the time is. What time do I have left?
Got about 10 minutes.
10 hours? Cool. Thank you
10
very
hours
much.
more.
All right, 10 minutes.
All right, any questions? All right, I got one. I've ran for Congress here locally in our district, and I know the money that it takes. And so, where is your money coming from? Well, who are your supporters? It takes millions of dollars to run a statewide campaign, and so explain your financials.
Sure. So I can tell you where my money's not coming from. It's not coming from some large corporations and entities that I've been calling out for several years. That's where it's not coming from. It's coming from we the people. So it's funny because in my first month running, I had more physical donations than, say, like a Chad Bianco in the first, and he was running for 6 months. I had more than he did physical, but mine were $5, $10, $25. But he had the huge donations, $39,000, $25. So he had a lot more money than I have. Now the money comes from we the people. It really does. And the only way that our campaign is going to be financed is for the participation of we the people. We have to all work together. If you really think that I have your best value set in mind, right? We know, I've been on stage with Bianco and Hilton. We know we slaughter them. That's not an issue. The issue is the media is going to ignore us as long as they can't, until they can't. And there will become a time very soon where they're going to have to not. And we know that. We know what's going on. But the people the apparatus of We the People is the only way that we're going to make it financially. And one of my goals is eventually to get the money out of politics, and we're working on some ideas to do that. Because you know who should really be elected? A plumber, a farmer, a housewife. That's who really should be elected in office. Somebody that actually understands what middle class is or understands poverty. I was a seriously impoverished child, right? And I went from there to owning, very large businesses. So somehow I figured it out. That's who needs to be elected. But right now, unfortunately, we're dealing with a money apparatus right now. The good news is we think we can get it done on 1/8 to 1/10 of what the top guy has. Because we're what's called, are you familiar with the primary, the way it works in California? It's a jungle primary. It's an open primary. So you can have 2 Democrats win, 2 independents, 2 conservatives win, it doesn't matter. And y'all can vote for whoever you want to in that. So all we care about in this primary is second place. And I never have for second place in my whole life. It's always for first place. But you only need 2 people to get through the primary, and then that's when the game really starts, right? So we need somewhere between an 1/8 and a 1/10 of what the big guys have already. We already suspect that, Hilton stated that he has 5.6 million. Bianco stated publicly, I have more than him, right? They probably have somewhere between 10, 15 million right now, currently. And that's just to the primary. And the reality is they're struggling because they're finding that there's this cap on them. And I think I know what it is. This is no shade on those 2 guys, by the way. I just know what it is. There's a whole sector that doesn't have an appetite for somebody that has an English accent. I've had them call me and say, I just can't vote for that guy. Do you know his policies? No, I just can't vote for that guy, right? And there doesn't seem to be an appetite right now for Bianco, and it may be because he kneeled for BLM or did all this other crazy stuff too, right? But both the guys seem to be capped, and they're really struggling. And they're like, I have 17%, I have 20%. We know the real numbers, right? They're both ranging somewhere between 14 and 17%. So that's a big challenge. And you're going to have somebody that can bring out a voting base that didn't vote in 2022. And this is not ego telling you, but I'm the only guy that can bring out that base. Because the primaries are the most important. I can tell you the baddies only concentrate on the primaries. The baddies put no energy into the general election. Because if they can get a Democrat and a Republican in name only through the primaries, they're celebrating and having champagne during the general because they already know they had their guy. But you're not told that. You're told that the primaries aren't that important and the general election is the most important. It's a complete psyop. The primaries are by far the most important. In 2022 gubernatorial primary, 33% of people voted. That's it. And that was high, 33%. So our winning is easy, actually. Out of that 67%, we only need to get 5% of them to come out and vote for us, and we'll carve a little bit out of here and a little bit out of there, and we'll get that second position. No problem. But what it's going to take is it's going to take you not to repeat the psyop. Well, we don't know you, or you don't have the money, or you're not one of the top 2, so you don't have a chance. Well, you're right. It's as long as you all believe that, you're correct. But if you believe there's actually somebody finally willing to fight for you and take the heat, right, and fight, and will never be on his knee, will always stand up in the face of adversity, maybe this is where we the people can stand up with me. And that's the only thing I ask. Did I answer your question?
Enough.
Thank you.
We gather in this same room weekly and talk about local, state, and federal politics every week. And I think as conservatives, the consensus is there's a whole lot of people in this race. And we're concerned with so many Republicans being in the race as well. Ideally, we'd like to see one Republican in this race. And there's a lot of race left to be had, so not to discount anybody's race at this point, but ideally that's what we like to see to have a chance. How do you feel about that?
So let me ask you a question. Why do you want a Republican instead of somebody that is only about the people and not party?
Well, here's the thing. the best candidate doesn't always have a chance to win, and we want to secure that office. And although having a Republican governor isn't going to change California drastically, it's going to hold that line for 4 more years. So would I love to have a constitutionally conservative Republican or conservative that just votes with the Constitution 100% of the time? I would. I definitely would. But I'd rather have someone we have to get someone in office. That person may not be able to make it all the way down the road. And that's my concern, is securing the office. And maybe the best candidate in my heart that I would like to win doesn't have a chance to win. And most importantly is to gain that office with a Republican.
Yeah, and it's a fair question and a fair comment, actually, and that is what the zeitgeist would be saying. That's what the people have been saying for a long time, and you're not wrong. I just want to show you a different possible option, really quick, because the parasites that control things, that's exactly the way they need us to think. They said, you know what? Well, we're just going to at least accept a Republican. And then that's why they elevate a Republican like a Lindsey Graham, who talks a lot and does nothing, right? Because they have those Republicans controlled. So you're not wrong, but that's also part of the messaging that they want us to continue to say it, which I've said for years myself. So let me give you another option really quick. What if you support your candidate that you really want, work as hard as you can for that candidate until June 1st, and then if you think he has no chance whatsoever, then you flip over and support your Republican? Would that be a fair thing to do? That's what I'm asking you to do.
That's definitely fair, as long as I would hope that those candidates at that point in time will see that maybe that's the cards aren't in it for this year, and would also make that decision to maybe drop off the ballot.
Yeah, or support another candidate. Sure. Right. And if it's the right candidate, I would be willing to do that, right? There's some candidates that I have a background in doing bad things in regards to sexual stuff and children that I know that I couldn't support, but there are some that I would be willing to support that are on the ballot right now. So I would say, if you think I'm that constitutional guy, support me until June 1st. Let everybody know about me, and then watch our trajectory. And then when you say, wow, look at, we the people actually do have a voice and can make a difference, that is how we're going to take this election, right? So that was an awesome question.
Hold on, Tom, just a second.
Tom, you're the troublemaker, I can tell.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm sure.
Everybody gave me a thumbs up, brother. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm sure you've probably been an independent. You have some idea of the numbers of the independent population in California compared to Democrats and Republicans. I don't know, we've got a lot of people that have left California. I don't know how many of Republicans, how many of Democrats or whatever, but how many are left? I don't know.
I have the
how
answer.
many independents are left to support you, and how many independents would join just the conservative unit or would go with Republicans or whatever? I don't know.
Well, no, it's a fantastic question. So I'm going to give you some numbers that might just blow you away right now, okay? So the Democrats hold about 45% of the on the voter rolls. Do you believe that's a true number, though? But let's even assume it is a true number, right? So that leaves another 55%. So where does that 55% lie? Well, I can tell you, as of a year ago, that slightly more than half of that extra, that 55%, was Republicans. As of this week, the Republicans fell below the independents for the first time in, I think, ever. That tells you the direction that things are going. Now, in regards to the election, based on what we've been talking about in polling and finding out what's going on, there's no appetite for a Democrat in there. None. I was in the Palisades, and I was shocked at how they're screaming about Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, and everything else. And so they may not vote for a conservative, but it's likely in the primary they may not come out to vote at all, which actually is a big win for a conservative. Right? There's speculation based on their numbers that 2 conservatives may get through the primary in California, which would be amazing. So think about this. So for the first time in like ever, there's no appetite for the Democrats. And then you have the NPP parties, the non-political parties, or the independents, that for the first time ever outrank how many Republicans are in the state. So what it tells you is there's no appetite for either parties. No appetite for the Democrats, right? Because we see what they've done. There's not an appetite for the Republicans, is because they haven't done much. It is what it is. Now, I was a Republican at 18 years old, right? I voted at 18, Republican. All the way through, all the way now to 60. I jumped off the bandwagon for a while and became a libertarian, right? And I'm like, okay, that may be a little bit too far. I'm not quite sure. But anyways, then I was a Republican. And right now, I'm actually an NPP candidate. And the reason why is because, in my opinion, the California GOP is corrupt. And I've seen the games, and I have some friends that have been involved where they've been running, and they were top 5 easy, and they're working so hard, and they were getting the money and raising the money for the GOP, and they were promised that they were going to get the money back, and it's going to go and divert it, and it didn't. At the last second, they're like, no, we don't like you, we like this guy, sorry. So thank you for raising money for the last year, but you're out. I don't play games, so I couldn't be involved in that game. And I'm going to leave you with this. And this is why I know that we can win this. I'm going to go back 2,500 years to Plato. And Plato said, right, what you do to control the people is you create an illusion of choice. You create two opposing parties or 2 opposing views while you're trying to control the population. Then you go later on, Machiavelli. That's what Machiavelli did. Noam Chomsky talked about this, right? You have Freud's nephew that preached on this. Saul Alinsky. Everybody all through time. This is what they're telling you. This is how they control you. But my favorite people, John Adams, George Washington, James Madison, all of them said the 2-party system will be the death of America. Yet here we are today. Anybody ever heard of Thomas Jefferson? 1776, you guys should know this. Thomas Jefferson indicated that if he has a choice to pick a party or go to heaven, he said, I probably won't be going to heaven. Why are we still talking about parties? We only should be talking about policy and the people. Go to hermsforcali.com. You can learn a lot about our campaign. I promise you there's nobody that's going to work harder. Nobody's that's going to cry, sweat, bleed for the people like me. And it's not bullshit. Follow me. Look at what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. I lost a $2.5 million business. I've been in the trenches. I was digging for cadavers with my own hands after Hurricane Helene. I will always fight for you. I guarantee you, it's my promise. But I need your help. We can do this together. And God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lewis. Awesome. It was great to know you. Great to get to know you better.
Thank you.
Again, Mr. Herms has a ton of stuff on the back table. Don't leave. Go through it. He has a sign-up sheet. You can sign up. If you want to get involved in the campaign, get more information, it's all back there. Please, don't leave without getting it. If God's putting on your heart to do it, then we get behind people. 1776 Sons of Liberty, we do not endorse candidates. But we want to give the opportunity for candidates to speak so we get to know who they are. And once we know who they are, then we do our duty, which is to elect the best person we have. A lot of great material back there. If you did not sign in, 1776 also has a sign-in sheet. We'd like to know who you are. Thank you. God bless you. Go. We'll be back every Monday, right here next Monday. Thank you.